Shrimp is the fruit of the sea. You can barbecue it, boil it, broil it.
You can twist one up at your fly tying bench.
Bake it, saute it. There's shrimp kebabs, shrimp Creole,
The Crazy Charlie.
shrimp gumbo, pan fried,
The Squimp.
deep fried, stir fried. There's pineapple shrimp,
EP spawning shrimp.
lemon shrimp, coconut shrimp,
Honey walnut shrimp from Panda Express.
shrimp and potatoes. That's about it.
Hello, listeners, and thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of the crafting community's viral hit podcast, Secret Society of Fly Tyers. After heavy deliberation, I decided to leave the sports/wilderness podcasting subgenre and return to my home in the leisure/crafting category. These are my people, after all.
We're the same, you and me. We're the same, don't you see?
I enjoy leisure just as much as I enjoy crafting, actually. It fits me perfectly. The other fishing podcasts can have their world over there. I'll be here with my quilters and basket weavers. On today's episode, I'm talking about shrimp patterns with Brita Fordice. So I guess it's more like the Secret Society of Shrimp Tyers, am I right, fans? Or the Seek Shrimp Society, or Secret Shrimp Society? Whatever. Never mind.
Boo.
I got over the hump of the first episode after a long break, and here I am, following it up like I said I would with episode 14. Or the second episode of season 2. Who cares? The podcast app, or whatever you listen to this on, tells you there's a new episode, and you either listen or you don't. I'm glad you chose to listen today. You know, as I flipped through the pages of the podcaster's manual, I learned that your second season is supposed to be a little more difficult than the first. The old sophomore slump. I say fuck you, podcaster's manual. Don't you ever tell me what should happen or how I should feel. I'm telling you all how I feel. It's my show. It's my therapy. And that isn't a joke. I quit my weekly Zoom therapy sessions with a licensed professional and decided to use this dumb space I've created as my own form of artistic therapy.
Calmo, relaxo, calmo.
Fly tying works to ease my brain. Fly fishing does too. If I can keep those thoughts and feelings going and funnel them into this podcast, then I might end up with some kind of slurry that'll work, or maybe a salve I could apply spiritually. I'm going to try my darndest. Pardon my French. It's not easy for adult men to talk openly about depression and other mental issues. It's why I'll be featuring Fishing the Good Fight in unsolicited ads after every episode in Season 2. I really dig what they're doing, and I believe 100% in the healing qualities of dedicated time in nature or just being creative or athletic. Did I just call fly fishing athletic? Ribbon dancing is in the Olympics, which is our closest sporting cousin, so yes it is. The Undisputed Facts Facebook group meets every other Sunday at 4 p.m. and we discussed it. The minutes from that meeting are available if you want to call my bluff and join the group. I would way rather use my brain to make the same joke about made-up facts in every episode of my podcast instead of allowing it to walk me through my own funeral on repeat. Jokes feel way better. So this is what you get. It's what we get. If I don't do this, my gears get gummed up with darkness. And I'll admit that a little bit of darkness helps things be funny, at least for me. But a lot of darkness is devastating, and you all are going to help me avoid that. But enough about me and my little sad baby feelings, though. Let's talk shrimp.
How many shrimps do you have to eat before you make your skin turn pink?
My buddy Kyle and I share a deep love for tasty shrimp. We mock those of you who don't enjoy a cocktail shrimp, even if it's due to allergy.
We eat so many shrimp, I got iodine poisoning.
I make fun of Kyle all the time because his body doesn't tolerate lactose, but holy hell does it tolerate shrimp. We both like flavors, and shrimp meat is one of them.
And we're eating shrimp.
Or two flavors when you include a delicious cocktail sauce. I love the Viagra Boys and both of their shrimp sessions. A shrimp is also a term used to describe one of my favorite ways for a baseball game to end too. A pitcher walking in the winning run. None of those have anything to do with twisting up shrimp at your vise, though, or throwing them in the water to catch fish. Shrimp flies imitate one of the most common forage sources in saltwater. It's a key, high-protein food for many saltwater fish species, and me and Kyle.
Do you like live shrimp? Do you like dead shrimp?
Shrimp flies are effective on bonefish, permit, redfish, and even freshwater fish. If you're an angler that stalks the flats, then a good selection of shrimp flies is a must. My guest Brita Fordice's shrimp patterns are some of the best in the game. If you aren't already familiar, you really need to take a spin through her Instagram to see all the awesome shrimp and other flies that she ties. You'll find all sorts of variations too, like gurglers and game changers, big ol' 7-inch game changers even. Once you're through getting hungry from all the shrimp, you'll see other cool ties like a flying fish with realistic wings and even an egg pattern the size of a baseball. Season 1 alumni Wes McNew ties up a great, simple shrimp with coyote fur and yellow eyes. If you haven't tried tying one yourself, you could dig into the gotcha shrimp, the crazy Charlie, or the bonefish scampi. Some advanced patterns are the Ververka spawning mantis shrimp, the EP spawning shrimp, the squimp, or Drew Chicane's disco shrimp. I'm trying to prove to you with words that the options are vast.
I get it!
I'll link to some of my favorites in the show notes that my analytics tell me no one reads. Like crab patterns, it's sort of difficult to pinpoint the first fly tire to spin one up. Or I'm just lazy. It probably wasn't crazy Charlie Smith himself with the shrimp fly he originally dubbed the Nasty Charlie.
Oh, that's nasty.
But he surely helped the widespread popularity of tying and fishing them. I read a great article by John Fraser about Charlie and his pattern on saltwatersportsman.com. It's short, and I'm going to read you some of it. Around 1950, Charlie became the head chef at the Lighthouse Club, located at the port of Fresh Creek on Andros, a hotspot for big-spending celebrities such as the members of the Rat Pack, lizard-worshipping George Bush Sr.,
Not gonna do it.
You are too gonna do
Not
it.
gonna do it.
You are gonna do it.
and the splendid Splinter himself, Ted Williams, to name a few.
The lab treated Ted Williams in criminal ways, including accidentally decapitating him, freezing his head to a tuna can, striking it repeatedly with a monkey wrench, and much, much more.
In those early days, Charlie frequently heard grumbling complaints from the guests about the bonefish guides. When club founder Dick Birch caught wind that his chef had talents other than preparing fish stews and frying conch fritters, he saw an opportunity that would aid in customer satisfaction and therefore his bottom line. Charlie's reputation as a local bonefish guru was on the rise. At one point, he even caught an 18.5-pound fish right off the Lighthouse Club beach. These were different times, and because Charlie was a, quote, colored Bahamian, what would have been a record catch was not accepted and was instead relegated to be the main course that fed 25 guests that night. When news about the trophy catch got out, Charlie's reputation skyrocketed to the point where it was his knowledge of bone fishing that attracted the majority of big-name public figures, such as Bahamian Prime Minister Lyndon Pindling and another high-ranking lizard, Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, to the club. For such highly esteemed guests, Birch wanted the best chef on the island to cook for them, so naturally he called Charlie. When Charlie arrived, Birch surprised him by saying, "You're always bragging about fishing, so now you have 2 prime ministers to fish. I hope you can go back to the drawing board and do something to make sure they catch some bonefish." Charlie realized that his reputation, and perhaps his job, was on the line, and admitted recently he was nervous. It sounded like he needed a miracle.
You have to have 4 miracles. That's the rules, you know. It's always been like that, 4 miracles to prove it.
He spent the remainder of the evening experimenting with fly patterns. By 2:30 in the morning, Charlie felt he had a winning combination. A fly that was essentially nothing more than a hook, lead eyes, and a chicken feather. The next day, Pindling caught 2 bones, and Trudeau managed 3. When they got back, Charlie showed the men the fly he invented just for them. Pindling told Charlie, "You better start inventing more because it worked for us, and it'll work for someone else." Pindling was indeed correct. Charlie finishes the story himself. So when Bob Naheim came from Fishing International to Charlie's Haven with Frank Britannia, they were missing all the big fish. Bob was getting upset and angry because he couldn't get one on, so I said, "I have a nasty fly in my pocket. Would you like to try it?" He said, "Yes, I'll try anything." So he cut the deceiver off that Lefty Cray invented and put on my fly. As soon as he cast it out, as soon as it hit the water, the fish ran over and boom, 9.5-pound fish to the boat. So I pulled the flat a while and Frank caught one, 6.5 pounds. Then he gave the rod back to Bob. When he went to cast the next big bonefish, Frank was in the middle of the boat, and Bob pulled the fly right between me and Frank and hooked Frank in his ass. And this is how it all began right there. We got the fly out of Frank's ass, Bob cut it off the line and put it in his pocket, and he took that to the fly shop in Redding, California, to Mike Michalak and asked if he'd copy the fly and tie up a lot of them. Mike said, yes, but I'll have to call Charlie. So Mike called me up and told me. Bob gave me this fly for me to copy, so I said, yeah, go ahead and do it. And that's how it all began. It ended by Bob saying he looked in his tackle box and found this old lure. That isn't true. He got the fly from me. I tie flies to catch fish, and I always tell the shops that they tie flies to catch the fish and the customer. As with any genius, Charlie has a rhyme to his reason behind turning out flies that many would consider unattractive. If you're a bonefish trying to catch a shrimp, and you're gaining on it and it looks crippled, you're going to keep going after it. He swears that his sloppy version, sitting right next to the beautiful version bought from the fly shop, will be picked up by a bonefish every time. So the Crazy Charlie is a guide fly, simple, quick to tie, and effective. I guess we should all learn that one, eh? I love these stories. I also love calling people shrimps, but I don't want them to feel small.
Hey, shrimp!
Who you calling a shrimp?
I just want to laugh at their expense, and I hope they're okay with that because in the moment it makes me feel good, which hasn't been easy these days. So, I have a girl on the podcast today, and I'm married, so I don't get to chat with girls online very much. I'm nervous. I've never really been good at talking to girls, if I'm going to be honest, in real life or virtually. I'll use that confession as a segue into my interview with shrimp tying extraordinaire Brita Fordice and tell you what is probably my most embarrassing talking to a girl experience. I had evolved into a fairly troubled punk outcast by the time I was in high school.
Fuck you. I am punk.
And I was living with my mom while my parents went through a long separation. She worked waiting tables and trusted me to take care of myself for the most part, and I tried. We didn't have much money, and I had to find ways to stretch every dollar. I felt like the luckiest boy in town when McDonald's started their retro 60s promo period. I went through the drive-thru to get a Big Mac and won another Big Mac that started an almost unreal string of more free Big Macs that I kept winning every time I got my hungry hands on one. Each package had an instant win peel-off sticker, and to my body's dismay, I couldn't lose.
I am not loving it.
One morning after I got to school, I started feeling my gut preparing for the inevitable, and I could tell it wasn't going to be pretty. I had to get out of there, but I couldn't afford to skip school again, so I hightailed it to the office to call home and see if I can get someone to pick me up. No one answered. This was before everyone carried a cell phone, and I was out of luck. Even though I didn't, I told the nurse I felt better and wanted to return to class.
I believe that is a poor decision.
She told me to head out to the walk-up window to get a late pass from the office before I went on my way. Earlier that year, I had dated one of the only alternative girls at my rural school for a while before we eventually split up. Of course she was also late that day and appeared right behind me to collect her own late slip and started to make small talk. As we started exchanging pleasantries, the floodgates opened and I pooped my pants mid-sentence. Not just a little bit either. A vile, watery mess was being mercifully hidden by my crust punk uniform that thankfully included a pair of long johns as a base layer that were just tight enough to prevent her from seeing this mortifying horror. They stopped what may have become a scene on par with a pie-eating contest scene and stand by me.
A complete and total barforama.
I'm not just using that as a metaphor either. It's been clinically proven that watching someone have diarrhea can trigger it to happen to other innocent bystanders, in a very similar way as the movie scene I just mentioned. Don't believe me? I used my connections to track down a licensed and bonded medical professional to provide some insight on the psychosomatic ailment.
Contagious diuresis, or the act of getting diarrhea from seeing somebody else have diarrhea, is a very real phenomena that scientists, infectious disease experts, and gastroenterologists like myself have been studying for decades. I'm sure some of you have experienced this yourselves. You've just enjoyed a nice casino buffet with a friend or loved one, and suddenly they spring a rectal leak and start blowing fudge all over the place. Then, before you know it, you too are hosing the place down with your own gut paint. And if you're in a crowded crowded area and other people see you blasting brown, they too might get caught up in the contagious cycle. And before you know it, you've got the entire crowd of people diarrheaing all over each other. It's a horrible sight to behold, trust me.
So anyway, I cut the conversation as quickly as I could and beelined it to the nearest school restroom, which was thankfully empty due to most students being in class at the time. I stripped those soiled long johns right off and threw them in the garbage while I washed up wearing just a Die-Dye My Darling shirt at that point, Winnie the Pooh style.
No bother.
I was somehow able to wrap things up before anyone came in. I had some shorts in my backpack, threw them on, and started walking. Even though I didn't have a ride, I had to get off campus. I have never been on a walk where more of my friends tried to stop and talk to me. I tried with all my power to play things casual and didn't chit-chat with any of them.
I can't talk too long. I gotta poo.
I would end up making it out okay and did a walk of shame to the nearest payphone and found a ride home. The ex-girlfriend in that story was Brita Fordice. I'm kidding. I just met her, and she was nice enough to waste an hour with me on Zoom to talk about shrimp, triggerfish, and all kinds of stuff. I had a great time chatting with her, and I hope you enjoy the interview. Well, Brita, thank you for joining me. I have a little intro, so let me read it real quick.
Hey.
We did it. We tried a couple times to get this interview recorded, and we persevered to finally meet up on the virtual airwaves to chat about tying flies, shrimp specifically, and maybe some squid too. I have a whole bunch of questions. I first came across your stuff on Instagram and was blown away at what I saw. And I was just getting into tying, and it really inspired me and motivated me to want to get better. And so I'm excited to talk with you and I have a whole bunch of questions. Besides for that, I've recorded 13 episodes so far, and I've only had one girl on the show.
Nice.
April Vokey. So I need you, Brita, to help
She's
me.
a good one too. So it's pretty honorable to follow her up as well.
Oh man, yeah, she's great. She's so sweet.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, but I need to bring that percentage up and hopefully inspire some more girls to get into this, because it's kind of like the hardcore shows I used to go to see as a kid. It's mostly dudes from what I see, and I'm hoping to get at least one female rep from the fly tying community on my show every season at least. And so anyway, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
How are you?
Of course.
How are you doing?
Good. I'm staying warm. There's no longer snow, so that's good.
Good.
Yes,
yeah. Where are you?
I'm in Cashapp County, so I'm across the water from Seattle.
Okay.
Cool. It's nice, kind of not having to deal with traffic or anything like that. So.
Yeah. Born and raised up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was born and raised in Shoreline area, or Edmonds, across the water from here, and then we had a house on the Still-Squamish up in Granite Falls area.
Yeah, there was a brief moment where I thought about moving up to the Seattle area. My brother lived up there in Green Lake, I want to say.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
For a little while, and
yep.
You thought about it, love it up there.
It's so pretty.
Yeah. Let's see. So what are your home waters then? Like, what do you fish the most?
Sea run cutthroat out in Puget Sound is probably still my favorite thing to do. And salmon when they're out there too. Steelhead has always been my favorite, just from growing up. But I think there's probably 3 or 4 of them left in all the waters that I usually fish. You feel a little bad hitting them constantly, the same few. So I kind of haven't done that much. And then other than that, it's lakes. I'm a big lake fan, but I don't admit it much.
Cool, man. That's something I seriously lack in. Like, I was just thinking that's my biggest weakness is like still water.
It's one of the hardest fisheries, I think. People think of it as so easy, but I mean, I have a chironomid box that probably has a few thousand chironomids in it, and I swear to God, I never have the right one. Still, it is tricky fishing, and once you get it, you feel like you're king of the world.
Yeah, I want to get into it. We have a lot of it around where I'm at in Northern California, so I really got to kind of give it a shot. You guided cutthroat on the Puget Sound beaches. You still do that?
I do. It's just few and far between. I haven't repurchased my guide license actually since COVID, just because there's a lot of stuff going on that was difficult to get people out, and all the regulations that I thought, no, I'm gonna take a little break. So once I get that going again after January, then I'll get back into it. I usually do it's just repeat clients nowadays.
Cool.
So I just stay booked with them a few days a month at the most.
Yeah.
And then in summertime, I'll do more.
The folks that have kind of become your friends and all that.
Yeah. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. Is that the catalyst of your attachment to tying shrimp and stuff like that? Is that where that all started, or?
Yeah, so I used to tie when I worked at the fly shop. In Avid Angler in Seattle, we'd get bored, here and there and break out the tying stuff. And I started tying a ton then. And then I got on Instagram and was trying to get more guide business and realized that for like a female really in the outdoor industry, you have two options. You can either make yourself look a little trashier and take a picture with fly rod in hand, or you can try and get people based on skill. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going that route. So instead I just posted a fly a day I tied, and then it just all went downhill. And at that point, obviously I was guiding full time. So I basically, shrimp and squid just happen to be my favorite things ever to look at, to play with, to tie. They aren't weirdly the number one thing I fish every time, but it's just because it's not always available in Puget Sound. Otherwise, I totally would.
It's funny you brought that up already. And we talked about April, and I think this was on the interview that when you were on her show, you talked about this, and where you were posting a fly a day, and that you were getting traffic to your guide business where people were wanting to see your patterns, right? Is that, did I understand that right? Yeah. Did they tell you this up front, or they just kind of show up at the boat ramp and be like, look, I just want to see what you tied yesterday? Like, how did that go? I was getting email or messages through Instagram daily, if not every few hours at times, depending on how many people, what I posted, asking for custom recipes for specific fisheries that they were doing. Cool.
Or they were involved in. Everything from fish carcasses, something that looked like an 8-inch fish carcass, to just weird GT stuff in locations that people hadn't ever been to, Lennox patterns, all sorts of fun stuff. And so that's kind of how I started getting those people that just kept bugging me and saying, oh, okay, well, now I have this available at home. Let me quick tie this up and I'll send you a picture and see if you like it. And then people ended up just buying stuff constantly. So I started doing a lot of custom selling. So cool. It kind of snowballed from there. Oh, yeah. I mean, it got to the point where I was having to almost ignore some people because I couldn't keep up. Nice. And when you sit there and you're like, I'm going to come up with a ridiculous price for something because I know that this person's never going to pay it. They're like, oh, I'll buy 10. You're like, oh, no, not the bluff. Awesome. Great. No, you can't bluff with that stuff. They'll take you. I know. I know. Yeah. Yeah. I love that story. And I'm trying to tie a fly every day myself, although I'm behind about a week, and I have so many materials I forget about because it's always packed away. I don't have a desk, it's kind of wherever's open. And just like anything else, if I don't keep working at it, I lose some skill and some of that, muscle memory or whatever, besides for the therapeutic nature of the whole thing. So I thought it was really interesting, that story. I took that from you, and I'm trying to do it at least one a day if I can. It's good for me. Yeah, that's awesome. And I find that just getting, anytime the new materials come out from Hairline or any of those guys, buying new materials that are in their catalog. You could even go online and see their catalog, so that's not a big deal. Buy some of the new materials, because usually new materials kind of pique my excitement and get me going again. And I think of, I could do this with this now, so let's try that too. Yeah. Well, that helps. Let's back up just a little bit. I wanted to hear first about how you got into tying flies originally. So we had our cabin on the Stillaguamish River up on the South Fork, and my dad had books he had the Diekmeyer steelhead book, and he had the Trey Combs book as well. And so I remember reading through those over and over and over again, because they were the two of the three coffee table books we had. The other one was This Old House, How to Repair Your Cabin kind of thing. It didn't really work. It wasn't helping me at all. So I remember reading through those, and it had pictures and recipes of patterns in there, but it didn't actually show how to do any of it. So I then went to Kaufman's
You
at
got
the
to like
time.
reverse engineer stuff.
Yeah, so I had to go to Kaufman's at the time and get a vise. You know, of course, my dad drove me. I was like 10-ish at the time.
And did your dad tie too?
He didn't, no.
Okay.
No, my dad and my grandfather fly fish, but neither of them ever tied flies. I think my grandpa might have, but he didn't ever work with me or talk to me about it much. Plus, all the flies of his generation were like a woolly worm, you know? They weren't that exciting. I mean, there's definitely gray ghosts and things like that, more technical, but not in the Pacific Northwest.
Sure.
So yeah, I went to Kaufman's and we got a vise. And then I was just finding materials wherever I could and trying to recreate what I was seeing. So they're pretty ugly for a long time because it took me a while to get through that learning curve since I was teaching myself. And if you didn't have a book, then you couldn't really get very far.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was 90s, early 90s or late 80s at that point even. So
yeah, we're lucky now for sure.
Yeah.
What was the first fly you tied that you actually caught a fish on?
Woolly bugger.
Just a woolly bugger?
Like everyone else, it seems like, yeah.
Yeah.
A woolly bugger was probably the first one that I can think of, or some variation of it. And then I got a steelhead on a teeny nymph. But
Nice. Yeah.
I mean, in 1992 or whatever it was, Jim Teeny was telling everyone on the planet that that's the woolly fly everybody needed for everything, right?
Yeah, well, I, like a lot of things, do things my own way. And I guess it sounds pretty weird because I'm a podcast host about a show about fly tying, but I honestly just tied my first woolly bugger like a month ago. And
Well, that's awesome.
I have never caught a fish on a woolly bugger. I've rarely ever fished them. Not because I have anything,
Yeah.
There's no stigma or anything about that.
Mhm.
I actually kind of dig it now. Like I'm kind of curious and like into different kinds of woolly
Yeah.
buggers now. I'm like kind of geeking
Yeah.
out on it, you know. But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I kind of bucked that trend for some reason. Not consciously. It just happened that way.
So there's one thing that I've analyzed with woolly buggers, which is really nerding out kind of, but if you think about it, like there's different reasons for all of them. You know, you have your dubbing loop leech, which is going to be the really slim one for like lakes and like clear water and shallow. And then you've got your like rabbit strip version, which is
Sure.
going to be more realistic, and that's going to swim the best. But then the last one is the basic, boring, old school woolly bugger. And I found that one works best at night and in places where it's low visibility, because it pushes so much more water. Those fish can feel that more on their lateral lines with that hackle on the side of it. So I feel like that's the best bet anytime
Yeah.
you're fishing night in particular.
Man,
Or you have really dumb fish and then they'll eat anything.
I was just geeking out on one that's like all feathers, you know, like all like
Yeah.
that look really cool.
Oh, yeah.
I'm digging into them now, you know, 3 or 4 years into doing it finally. That's kind of how I do stuff. I don't know.
I think as long as you have a place to set everything up and leave it up, that makes the biggest difference, because the annoyance of like taking it down and getting everything back out again makes me not want to do it as much, at least for me.
So how did this, the kind of standard start to fly tying turn into what you're doing now? Like, how did you kind of parlay that, into, you say you take custom orders and do custom stuff,
Mhm.
but also, I know you've helped develop a line of reel flies too.
Yeah.
And I want to know how that project's coming along too. So,
Yeah.
let me know.
So I've been working at Avid Angler for almost 13 years at that point, and guiding full time at that point as well. And I was approached about a position at Farbank, which would have been technically for Sage, as it was a product technical specialist. So anytime you call Sage, Reddington, or Rio, you get the same two people. Basically, they answer the phone and say, okay, some guy that's saying, I'm going to be fishing off an oil rig in the middle of Texas, and I want to know what fly line I could use that won't get too hot and has a 50-pound core and all these weird geeking out kind of questions, right? So that was the position that they offered, and I took it. So I moved over to Kingston, or to Kitsap area, and then I started working there. Well, as it turns out, at the time, the person that was the sales manager there had also been watching my social media, and he had been pushing to get Rio to start designing flies. And so he brought me on as in that position temporarily with the intent that he would pull me and put me in flies. At the time, Patrick Kilby, who originally was a manager for Idlewild flies back in the day, which everyone knows were some of the best quality, especially dry flies in particular, out there on the market for years. He was running the repairs department. So it was kind of the perfect storm of the two of us because we were both big fly nerds. They put the two of us together and we started the fly program for Rio. And so what we do is we basically have multiple factories that we work with overseas, and we manage all of that. And at the time, it's tough because they have all the signature patterns from different companies, manufacturers. And once I had patterns with Umpqua, for example, and they used my name. So it was like Fordice's Jersey Turnpike. But then once I got out of the contract,
then that's a great name. That's a great name. Just by the way, that's good.
That's one of my favorites. We need to talk about that too. Is
okay.
The name of fly. But the trademarks on them, they pull your name is what they do, so that they can still get the money from the fly pattern, but you aren't getting the royalties on it. So now it's just a Jersey Turnpike, for example.
Right. Okay.
So you pull all those flies out, and you're like, okay, we're left with 3 flies in the bonefish category right now that we have nothing else. So we need to supplement. And so all the flies up until last year, all the flies that had Rios in front of them were designed by either myself or Patrick for Rio.
So cool.
So yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about naming. Is naming a fly like the best or worst part?
It's my favorite thing ever.
It is. That's so cool.
Patrick and I have this huge list that people from all over the office come in and add to.
Yeah.
And it's everything from like roller derby names to like, we have horse racing names. We have just horrible commentary that we've heard. Like one of my ones that you'll probably understand and only people with children understand is I designed a fly that's kind of like a shrimp and kind of like a squid. And so I was like, okay, what should we name this? And Patrick, one of the ones we had on our list was Diary of a Shrimpy Squid.
Oh yeah, my kid.
So we were like, okay, that's gonna work.
Yeah, my kid reads those Wimpy Kid books for sure.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
So we have that one. And then there's things like the banana stand and stuff, because there's always money in the banana stand for Rusty development.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because as long as it's not in the same category, you don't have an issue with a lot of the trademark or like the copyright issues. So you can get away with a lot of stuff. I have the, what else? The beat off. I mean, most of the inappropriate ones are all mine, to be honest, which is really bad.
There's a ton of those out there. It's one of those things where it's like, it's like walking on the line. It's going to be like cringy or great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar. My buddies and me used to talk about like the sweetest job would be to like come up with the names for weed strains. Which is it's similar. It's similar to the fly fly pattern names. They're also corny and stupid, but there's some funny ones too.
It's super fun. I love it. It makes me happy.
That's so cool. So you talked a little bit about selling flies. Like, can you talk a little bit about selling patterns, like versus collecting royalties on something like that? Like what's
so if I do it myself versus through Rio kind of thing, or is it? Yeah. So if you're selling them on your own, then you're basically, it should be something that's like you've designed yourself, or it's something that's been out on the market for a long time, like a Clouser or something that no one's going to really freak out about.
Sure.
And then you can just basically, for people that want to sell theirs, honestly, Instagram is one of the best options. Really, even more so than paying for a website that you have to update constantly.
For sure.
Because I think more people are looking at that than anything. And then for something like Umpqua and Solitude and some of the other companies out there that design flies and manufacture them, they pay a royalty to the people that submit fly patterns for them.
Okay.
And so based on the selling price of those, they end up getting a small percentage back for all the ones that are sold, which is great for like guides and stuff where like, I really don't want to keep tying this myself.
Yeah.
It makes it nice, because then you can just buy your own patterns again and not have to worry about, and you get money for everyone else buying them.
Yeah.
And then for Rio, it doesn't work that way. I just do it for standard pay. So.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. I have no desire to be a professional tyer, like selling patterns. I'm always curious though about on how this stuff works, and it's interesting to me. So the reason I got you on the show is to talk about shrimp mostly. I mean, and I have to confess, I've never tried to tie one. I've tied crawdads. Is a crawdad a shrimp?
Depending on who you talk to, yes or no. Generally speaking, no, but it's going to be more along the lines of like a crayfish kind of thing.
Yeah.
But is it in the same distant cephalopod? I can't recall off the top of my head. I don't think so, but I don't know. I may be totally wrong. I don't freaking know.
You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut in. I'm going to find some kind of like scientific explanation. I'm going to cut it in.
Hey everybody, we all know who I am. I'm an expert on shrimps and fish and many other things, but today we'll be talking about shrimps and crawdads and triggerfish. First, let's talk about the names of these wet beasts. A lot of people think that the plural of shrimp is shrimp, but they are wrong and stupid and mean. The plural of shrimp is shrimps. You just put an S on the end. It makes sense. Dollars and cents. So if you see more than a single shrimp, call them shrimps for the love of God. Next, let's talk about crawdads, which are not shrimp and are not even crawdads. They're actually called crawfathers, but people are lazy and they shorten the name to crawdads in the 1800s because they would get out of breath saying crawfathers. Too many syllables for them simple-minded folk. God bless them. They're all dead now, though. I mean, everybody from the 1800s is dead. You know that, right? Anyway, crawfathers and shrimps are completely separate creatures, but they are both equally wet and edible. Crawfathers are actually more closely related to pigs than shrimp, but we can discuss that another day.
Perfect. Awesome.
I'm going to drop it in right
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Hopefully it's good. What's a good, simple, like entry level shrimp pattern for someone like me to start?
Yeah. So probably the best I could think of is like a gotcha or a crazy Charlie.
Okay.
And those ones, I mean, they're kind of generic and they're across you're going to find them everywhere and recipes everywhere for them. But the beauty of those is that everything hits them. I mean, they're a bonefish pattern, but I mean, you could even get chum salmon with them out in Puget Sound when they're coming through, which is fun. And you can change out the wing. So instead of using like calf tail for the wing, you could use rabbit, you could use fox, you could use all sorts of stuff and make them a little bit weird. You could add little different rubber legs out the back of them to make them more exciting. It's a good one to start with and that you could kind of grow with and keep updating and changing a little bit.
Cool. I mostly hear about fishing with shrimp on flats, like flats fishing. Mm-hmm. Is that where most of your orders for those type of things go, or is it? Yes
and no. It some of them are, but then it started off with them. Most of it was just like my steelhead prawns and things like that. Okay. And then people saw those and wanted me to adjust them and adapt them to fishing for tarpon and for bonefish and things like that on the flats. My favorite thing on the planet is triggerfish. You'll never see me get more excited of anything in the world than I do triggerfish. Well, puppies maybe too, but triggerfish is definitely it.
I'm with you on puppies. The triggerfish, are these the ones with human teeth? Am I thinking of the right
pretty
ones?
Much. They're scary teeth. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Those things, I freaking love them. I love everything about them. I love hunting them. It makes me so happy.
What is it about them? Can we kind of go on a side route there? What's up with the triggerfish? Yeah.
So they're stupidly smart. I mean, I don't know if they really are, but they seem like they are. It's probably one of the more technical flats fishing situations.
Okay. Whereabouts? Where are you going?
You can find them anywhere. I've fished for them in the Bahamas, Christmas Island.
Cool.
You could find Florida. You could get them, but it's like hunting, and it's stalking, and you're basically you're going to fish them better in certain tides, depending on where you're at. Only they spook incredibly easily. For these tiny, stupid little looking fish, they fight so hard that it's embarrassing sometimes how hard they fight, because you just realize that you fought this fish for God knows how long off a reel on an 8-weight, and it's like tiny,
Yeah. Wow.
The other thing that's really fun is that when you hook them, especially in places with like a sand bottom, they take off and run for the hills to their hole.
Okay.
So you have to sit there, and if you have somebody with you, you can talk them into running and trying to beat the fish to their hole to step on it so they blocks them. Otherwise, if you hook into a really big triggerfish, you're waiting for that fish. You have to literally drop the line and hope that it comes out of its hole in the next hour so that then you can try and pick it up and still have it hooked and trying to get it in. It's crazy.
Man, I need some kind of hole here at my house.
I know, yeah.
You know, so
Call the bathroom.
Yeah, totally. Am I right in that the triggerfish are they the ones that help make sand? Am I thinking right?
Probably. I have no idea.
Oh,
honestly.
Man. Okay.
That would make sense because I know that they chomp up coral, so that would totally make sense.
I'm going to cut in another scientific drop right there.
Now, let's talk about triggerfish, the only fish in the sea that has a little fin that you can push down to make the big fin go down. I don't know how to explain it any better than that, and I'm an expert, so that means that there is no better way to explain it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go to your local aquarium and take a triggerfish out of the fish pool and push the little fin on top, and you'll see what I mean. Anyway, yes, triggerfish make sand. They make sand by eating rocks and bones and trash and mushing it up with their extremely hard diamond teeth and then spitting the resultant powder onto the ocean floor as a sign of respect. Anything can turn into sand if you put it in a triggerfish's mouth, so let this be a warning to ye. Keep your soft bits away from their hungry chompers and you'll be all the better for it. Well, that about wraps up me time for today. I hope you learned a lot from me, a true expert on many, many things.
Awesome. They're just also some of the coolest, prettiest looking fish out there too.
They totally are. I really want to do some of that. I've never done that. The tropical
so fun.
bass fishing. Got to do it.
Yeah, it's so fun. And they eat a lot of the same stuff that bonefish eat. It's the difference between them and bonefish shrimp flies is that you need a much heavier duty hook for triggerfish because they'll crunch and crush any hook out there. Gotcha. The ones that I think work the best are the Gamakatsu, the SL12S, and then the 800S Umpquas or Tiemcos.
Cool. Right on. All right, back to shrimp. Do shrimp patterns need eyes?
It depends. Honestly, I have fished them with and without, and I don't think that they do at all. However, if you're going to sell them in a store setting, yeah, they do. Because it's good to sell it to the fishermen.
I hear you.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think a lot of times you think that they do, and then you end up fishing them and they come off and you end up fishing and catching just as many fish. So it's clear that most locations, they do not.
Yeah. I always wonder how much matching the hatch matters with saltwater patterns like that, you know?
Yeah, when you get into the bigger shrimp, like mantis versions and things like that, I think it's probably a little more important because then it has to do more with the proportion of the back shape of the actual shrimp body. But I don't think for stuff like gotchas and like those little shrimp, no, that's just for the fishermen a lot of times.
Yeah, we eat with our eyes, right?
Yeah.
What material do you use most tying up shrimp patterns? Like,
geez, I would say a lot of time one of my most used material is UV products.
Okay.
I go to town. Like I got the big light.
Oh man, yeah.
The loon one. It's pretty awesome, actually.
You know, I joked with Alvin Dito on my a previous episode about making a helmet with one of those on there. So you just have it right here. Oh, look, this is a Christmas gift I got. Like,
totally. That's awesome.
It's not UV.
That's so cool.
But I'm pressing my my beanie that has a headlamp on it.
That'd be awesome.
For those of you that can't see us, because you're not going to see this video. It's just audio.
Those the loon stuff in particular, a lot of that the UV products and some of the Solaras, all those are they have changed the game in fly tying quite a bit just by making it so that people can innovate stuff more than they ever could before. You can make carapace or shells for them. You can make your own eyes, shrimp eyes with them, just on using burnt piece of mono and adding that to it, making them in all fun colors. There's just endless possibilities.
So talking more about materials, I wanted to ask you about tying with bear hair. I haven't used it myself, and you posted a pic of some flat wings that you tied on your Instagram, and you noted that the hair was collected before 1972. Can you explain the significance of that date? Yeah, so 1972, that's when the Marine Mammal Protection Act was enacted. And it basically means that you're not allowed to harass, kill, transport, you name it, dead or alive, anything that is of the marine area or land, water, whatnot. So that includes polar bears. So that has made it
difficult, I know, at times for people to transport legal kills of polar bears that were from Canada, where it's still legal, to the US, trophies that they've got. There's been a lot of stuff with that. However, at Avid Angler, we were able to purchase a large quantities of prepackaged bear hair packages that were all dated and papered pre-72.
Wow. Yeah, before 8 years before I was born. It's still out there on the shelves. That's crazy.
Yeah, you were born in the same year as me.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So best substitutes then, if you're wanting to tie with bear hair but can't get legal bear hair.
Yeah. It's tough. Bucktail is going to be the common answer you're going to get when it comes to that. It doesn't necessarily, it has a lot of the same kind of movement, but it doesn't have the same sheen, translucency, any of that reflective qualities that polar bear does. However, it's probably the best option you've got for that sort of thing. The other option would be Arctic fox, which is way softer and fluffier. Or there's like snow runner or like yak hair, which is also softer, but that's also going to carry with it some legality issues and ethical issues, depending, as with temple dog. So,
man, I don't think I know what a temple dog is.
You're going to find a lot of contradictory stuff online about it. Everything from it's a raccoon dog to it's literally any dog that's running around the temples. You never know what you're going to get. It could be a lot of different breeds of dog or a raccoon dog. Let's put it that way.
I still haven't tied a fly with my dog hairs. Yeah, my dog, I have a cookie monster, the lab that lives with me here.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Haven't tried, although she sheds everywhere. I haven't.
Oh yeah.
That, so maybe someday.
I haven't done that with any of mine either. No. Really. I did have a guy that paid me that wanted to do a unique tying course. And so I met him at the fly shop, and he had a Ziploc bag of his dog's hair from his dog that was in like weeks from being put down.
Oh man.
And so he only wanted me, I laughed because it's horrible, but at the same time, the guy wanted only to tie caddis flies with his dog's hair.
Yeah. Oh man.
But then the whole time, he was like, it's not looking the way it should. And I'm like, because the hair isn't hollow. It's not the same kind of hair as elk. It's not going to. Yeah. But you can't do that one. I mean, it was the most awkward situation.
Yeah, that's such a good story, though. I have a buddy, Morgan, that lives near me here, that did something similar. When his beloved fishing buddy dog passed away, he tied flies with it, brought it to a river that I believe that he would go to with his dog, and tribute flies, which was super cool. I thought it was a great.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. I only got a few more questions for you, Brita, and I appreciate you sticking with me here. What are some DIY options to consider for a swim tank? So if you're not like really close to a body of water, or, maybe you don't have a bathtub in your apartment, like what are some ideas that you've used or could pass on?
The best way to do it is just to blow on the damn fly.
Well, yeah, we could probably all do that, right?
Yeah, that's probably the best one. That, or it's going to have to, sink in bathtub. Most of the stuff that you're looking at, though, a lot of trout flies, saltwater stuff is going to be less common than trout flies. But just taking a clear glass of water and leaving it out overnight and dropping your flies into it and watching what they're doing, or tying them on a loop knot and dangling them up and down through that says a lot about what that fly is going to do, how it's going to land, where it's weighted correctly, where it's not, if it's level, you name it. So I think that's probably one of the best ones. If you're tying dry flies too, I always would dump them in a glass of water and leave it overnight for a few nights and see if it's still floating.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, so that's probably the best do-it-yourself option. Otherwise, if you have a vacuum cleaner and can do the flow on it, it's pretty darn realistic.
A hair dryer,
you can move it in and out, or a hair dryer or something that. That'll work too. Most of those that you buy, they're great. They are horrific to clean. It has produced short of tears and large amounts of gagging at our work from having to clean ours, because even putting bleach in it,
the water just sits there and it just gets gross, or what?
it gets disgusting, and it's so awkward to carry out and clean that you get that stuff all over you when you're hosing it out or pressure washing it out. And even if it doesn't get that bad, it's like still it smells like a freaking fish tank, and it's just you get it sloshing all over you when you're trying to carry it outside. It's gross.
I had no idea. I'm assuming it's because you're putting in a bunch of animal parts in there, essentially,
and like dyes and like all that crap. And the air movement as it's blowing the water through, it produces heat, so it warms up the water, so it makes it like just happy for bacteria. So we put bleach in there, and then we end up with bleach spots all over our clothes, and like it only lasts so long. It's disgusting. So I personally, if it was up to me, I would say just stick with hair dryer, or like the tub, or a baby pool if you got one in your backyard.
Yeah, I usually bypass it all, and I'm pretty close to the river here, and I'll just kind of, before I'm casting out, kind of drag it around a couple times and check it out.
That would be my recommendation as well. Yeah.
Okay. If you had to give up eating shrimp or tying them, which would you choose?
Oh, eating. Yeah. I do love shrimp, but I would still say I'd give them up. Yeah.
Just checking, because I also love shrimp.
Mm-hmm. Those Costco ones that you can get are probably one of my favorite ones. I can go through a whole container of that stuff. Anyway,
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Okay, and I asked this to all my guests: Have you ever had a supernatural or paranormal experience?
No, although I do talk to Satan consistently in the form of my ex-husband. Does that count?
Okay. All right. I thought you were being serious for a second. I was like, oh my God, I'm talking to a witch. Like I didn't know what was going on for a second.
I got in trouble with my kids the other day because I have the picture in there. My phone is Voldemort for him, and my son saw it, and I was like, oh shit, bad. He's not Voldemort all the time, I promise.
That's so funny. It's so good.
I'm going to hell. I'm sorry.
No, come on.
I haven't, weirdly. Not that I don't believe in it.
Nothing.
Ghosts actually scare the shit out of me, to be honest.
Scared? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why, but they do. But yeah, no, I haven't.
It's natural.
I'm intrigued by people that have them.
Yeah. So. It's natural to be afraid of ghosts. Come on.
Yeah, they scare me.
Unless you're like a psychic medium or something that talks to them every day.
Oh yeah, I guess that would make sense.
You wouldn't be surprised. You wouldn't be surprised to hear that I don't get a lot of answers to that question.
Oh really?
Telling me about any of it, but I like asking every once in a while. April had something about it.
Oh yeah, April's had some. I mean, I remember when she was working at the shop or working up in Canada, because she's not that far from us, and she'd come down and do classes with us. And she found a body from one of the, believe it was one of the BC serial killers up there on the water one day when she was going fishing.
Man, I didn't ask her about that.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm 99% positive that was her that happened with.
I got to get her back on the show.
Yeah.
We have a deep conversation about this.
Yeah, I'm sure she's recovered probably by now, so that's probably safe.
And everybody has a finding a body story now. It feels like. I mean, I'm 42. Yeah. I'm 42. And I don't have mine yet, thankfully. But I more people I meet, that comes up.
Yeah.
And everybody has one. I don't know if it's because I'm talking to people that go out in the woods and go out far out, like other anglers and stuff like that. But I don't want that day to come.
When I was growing up, we did, I had soccer games all the time down in South Seattle area. And I remember one time having just cop cars and whatnot everywhere in the parking lot. We just kept doing our thing and played the game, and then we were going home. Well, we found out later on that they were actually pulling one of the Green River Killer's bodies out of the river.
Oh, geez.
That was next to the soccer field, and we had no idea. But that was like right there next to by South Aurora, where he was picking up everybody, basically. So, yeah.
Well, I always hope that my Pacific Northwest guests have some kind of Bigfoot thing, but none for you, huh?
Oh, dude, the proportion of methamphetamine use in the woods in the Northwest is a direct, there's relation, to the amount of Bigfoot stories.
This is something science isn't considering. I haven't heard. I haven't heard that brought up.
Have you ever, if you look at a map, the quantity of Bigfoot sightings in like proportion to the amount of drug use in these places. It's like West Virginia, no offense to West Virginia, like middle of nowhere in the Cascades in Washington.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
I don't know. That's my opinion, but I do know there's a lot of meth in the mountains of the Cascades. So
most mountains, it's just it just happens.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I mean, what else are you gonna do? I guess.
I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we didn't.
Mushrooms.
I'm glad. That's better. That's a better idea, right? Something mind expanding, not life destroying, right?
Yeah, exactly. Enhancing everything.
Yeah. I'm glad we ended on that note, not the dead body thing. I didn't want to.
Yeah, it's probably good.
Didn't want to end on the dead body thing. Thank you, Brita. I really appreciate you. Taking some time out of your day and chatting about shrimp and stuff over the computer.
Yeah. No problem. I enjoyed it as well.
Oh man, and glad we finally got it together. Yeah. Thanks again. Thanks again to Brita for spending an hour with me on the internet. She inspires me, and I hope she inspires you to gather up some materials and tie shrimps. Find Brita's links in my show notes, along with a bunch of other episode-related things. Have I thanked you for listening today?
Don't even try to take credit for that.
Thank you. I mean it. It's been cool to start seeing some feedback, and I love getting emails from listeners. One common thread being that the video trailers I put together for each episode are your favorite part. Look, I can totally just do the video trailers and pretend to release new episodes. I'll just release an hour of the ambient sounds of people tying flies or fishing instead. It won't take me as long to create each episode, and you'll end up getting more content more often. We both win. I'll be able to move the show over to the ASMR podcasting category, and if I do any voiceover, it'll be in a comforting whisper. These ASMR channels really figured out a sweet hustle, haven't they? They cut up a bar of soap or play with slime and just roll in the profits like the most satisfying, soothing, rich pig people they always dreamed to be. How did they know? How did anyone know that cutting up bars of soap or tapping on things with long nails under a highly sensitive microphone would become such a profitable streaming opportunity? I can't tell you how badly I wish I was the person who found that out first. It's such a slam dunk. The ASMR king or queen must have had their psychic antenna tuned correctly that day and subconsciously, or maybe even consciously, downloaded the information through some type of supernatural contact. Sorry. Speaking of viral videos, I want to pay viral TikTok stars and D-list celebrities on Cameo to record promos for my show.
That Secret Society of Fly Tires, the best podcast to listen to with no shirt. Can you please say Secret Society of Fly Tires, the best podcast to listen with no shirt?
I'm telling you this because I want you to feel comfortable knowing that any donations made to the show via the links in my show notes are going to be put to good use. Even better, pay for your own on Cameo, without me even knowing it. I'll use it on the show no matter what you make the celebrity say about me. I'd also like to share that like a fucking idiot, I somehow managed to delete my entire monologue when I was about 90% done editing this episode. So I had to retell my diarrhea story twice to myself just to let a bunch of strangers on the internet hear it too. I did it all for you. I hope you enjoyed it. Okay, that's it. I'm done rambling for this edition of Secret Society of Fly Tires. I'll sign off, like always, with a couple completely unsolicited plugs for organizations I feel are doing positive things in this space. If they don't feel comfortable being associated with a fly tying podcast that talks in depth about aliens one day and diarrhea the next, all they have to do is reach out, and I'll stop without any hard feelings. Project Healing Waters brings a high-quality, full-spectrum fly fishing program to an ever-expanding number of veterans in need at over 200 locations nationwide. Project Healing Waters programs meet regularly throughout the year, with volunteers teaching the basics and advanced techniques while building long-term relationships. It's much more than a one-time fly fishing trip. The program provides basic fly fishing, fly casting, fly tying, and rod building classes for participants whose skills range from beginners who have never fished before to those with prior fly fishing and tying experience. All fly fishing and tying equipment is provided to the participants at no cost. Fishing trips, both one-day and multi-day, are also provided free of charge to participants. Visit projecthealingwaters.org to learn more. Fishing the Good Fight is breaking down walls, smashing taboos, and building community. They believe that experiences in nature are an important part of caring for one's mental health. Less than 20% of men struggling with mental illness and or substance abuse are receiving professional support. The combination of a healthy therapeutic outlet, talk therapy, and a strong community will lead to mental well-being. Men face specific challenges when it comes to addressing mental health issues. According to Mental Health America, 6 million men living in the U.S. suffer from depression. In a National Center for Health Statistics studies, nearly 1 in 10 men reported experiencing some form of depression, but less than half sought treatment. 70% of all people who die by suicide are men. It's from the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Men are often reluctant to seek help, particularly for depression, and are far less likely to access professional mental health services than women. Men make up less than 25% of people treated for depression and or substance abuse. For a lot of men, Fishing the Good Fight program, such as a retreat, is the first time they have opened up about struggles they faced, and 100% of men who attended a recent retreat indicated that they would seek professional help after the treatment. If you've ever wondered about your own mental health and wanted to improve your quality of life, Fishing the Good Fight can provide the tools, resources, and support to guide you along your wellness journey. FishingTheGoodFight.org has more information.
This episode of the Secret Society of Fly Tires is brought to you by the Secret Society of Fly Tires e-commerce platform. That's right, we just launched our very own web store where you can buy our products to tie your own flies just like the wet little host of this podcast does every day. We've got everything you need: pig hair, frog leather, human teeth, fish innards, lizard tails, and tubes. We've got more tubes than you can shake a stick at. We've got tubes of all lengths and girths. They say that it's really girth that matters, so we've got some really, really girthy tubes for all your enjoyment. Just head on over to www.flyfishingSupplies2022-buy.activeproducts/buy.ru and check out our products now. This episode of the Secret Society of Fly Tires is brought to you by the Secret Society of Fly Tires. I know it sounds like I just said the same thing twice, but I didn't, you idiot. You weak little moron. This episode is brought to you by the Secret Society of Fly Tires. Fly Tires. It's a store in Vacaville, California that sells really cool tires. You know, for cars and trucks and dune buggies and stuff. They've got all the best designs and colors, and their tires are guaranteed not to explode. That's the Secret Society of Fly Tires guarantee. No explosions here, baby. It even says that on the sign. Go check it out for yourself. Use code NEVEREXPLODE69 for 69% off your next Fly Tire order, baby. Please note that this is not a real advertisement, and the company, brand, entity, or product mentioned in the preceding ad in no way endorses, agrees with, or knows about this podcast.